is a pillar for me. He is a coach for me. He is someone that I look to, that I aspire to be more like. He makes me want to do greater. He makes me want to be better. And in terms of today's theme, he makes me want to reflect his light in what I do. I love who he is. I love what he does. I'm here for it, and now you are too. Please greet to the stage our speaker today, William McNeely, my coach.
Good morning. Good morning. Thanks, Tim. That was a great introduction. I've been coming to Creative Mornings for 7 years now. It took me 7 years to get up here. I mean, that was a long time. Thank you for recognizing Kelsey. Kelsey was Do Greater Charlotte's first paid employee 2.5 years ago. But I'm excited to be here. Good morning. I normally say, good morning, my neighbor, but I don't know if anybody recognizes that reference, so I might be telling my age, and don't respond back to the way the movie did, if anybody knows that. Coming to America. Thank you. Somebody knows that, so don't respond that way. But good morning. Close. Good morning. My name is William McNeely. I'm the CEO and founder of Do Greater Charlotte, and I am extremely happy to be here. It's great to be here speaking on this subject of reflection. I just want to tell a few stories. Tell a few stories about me, my life, how I got here. One of the things when I think about reflection, I think about this idea of possibility and purpose. For me, these two concepts have been inseparable, particularly in the pivotal moments of my life. You see, early, I was driven by possibilities of dreams and potential that I saw ahead of me. But later, that potential transformed into something deeper, a sense of purpose. You see, I grew up as in an ordinary black family in the 60s. What you see behind me is Belvedere Homes. It was built in the 1950s as affordable housing for white families, just off of Beatties Ford Road on a street called Zebulon. Yes, that Zebulon. It's down the street just from Savannah Mills, where we had Creative Mornings last month. You see, this is where my earliest memories of being poor began. It was this idea that in a space that was developed for poor people, that we had this opportunity to start to see things differently. See, I was in preschool at the time when my sister and I were paraded from our neighborhood daycare to Raleigh in front of a congressional delegation. We were placed as examples of what they called an extraordinary future. You see, we were showcased as proof of what could happen if subsidized daycare received the proper support and funding. You see, that's where my journey began. That's where my upward mobility began. It began with this idea that it was not success, but it was this idea that I was not ordinary. So where does the journey upward truly begin? This was my start. It was my start up. But let me begin by asking you a question. Where does up start? What does up look like? You see, up doesn't start with success. It doesn't start with accolades or major achievements. No, up starts with a shift in perspective. It starts when you begin to understand that your current circumstances are not going to stay that way, and you start to glimpse the possibilities. You start to glimpse the idea of doing greater. You see, I can imagine me standing in front of a mirror at the time when I was young. What did I see? Did I see this poor kid from the west side, from the projects, or did I already see the dream of going beyond good? going beyond to greater things? Did I already start to visualize that? The truth is, the mirror doesn't reflect what's there. It also reflects what's possible. It shows not only who you are, but who you might become if you allow yourself to see beyond the surface. You see, that's what we do at Do Greater Charlotte. We are changing the perspectives of students every day. We help students see with new eyes, to see the possibilities. You see, we provide youth with tools and technology, spaces, and community to empower them with the confidence to create. It's where they start to shift that potential or their perspective and start to see that potential early on. You know, I remember the first time when someone saw the potential in me, that I literally hadn't discovered at that time. Let me take you back to my 6th grade year. He's like, here it comes. I hear you, Mitchell, over there. Let me take you back to my 6th grade year. See, my band director saw something in me. I was musically inclined at a very young age. Most people who would see me today would not believe that I'm not a musician or the next Wynton Marsalis or something like that, because that's what I did all the time. And my band director saw me and he said, you have a talent. Not only to play, but you have a talent to lead people. You see, his belief in me became the moment I started to recognize my potential. His belief in me became this piece of social capital, a confidence I carried forward. So you have to understand, I was new at this school, and there was this friend that I had. His name was Roger Nussman. I went to Carmel Middle School at the time, and Roger was from Matthews. I was from West Charlotte. Roger would bring pictures of his Suzuki dirt bike to school every day. Look what I've got. And I would bring pictures of my beat up bike. Roger was my competition. Roger was good. He was in band with me, played drums, took private lessons, did all the things to make you successful. I had a beat up cornet. My mom purchased secondhand from the pawn shop. But I played that cornet. And Mr. Zimba said, William, I see it. I see the potential in you. Keep doing it. And so I latched on to it. I became enthusiastic for music, and the creative in me began to blossom. And it stopped the doubt that I had in myself. So years and years after that, I became a leader in music. That's me up top. The first solo that I had in the 6th grade, I played, I'm going to date myself now, This Masquerade by George Benson. Y'all know that. I played that as a trumpet solo. 6th grade, but it propelled me now to be a leader all through high school. You see, at Do Greater Charlotte, we power potential. We power potential. We've seen countless young people come in with an interest only to leave with this newfound passion and the skill that sets them on a path to upward mobility. That's what we do. We recognize the potential within our students, and even when it's hidden under layers of doubt and circumstance, these moments of discovery are what we call seeds of possibility. But as we all know, not all reflections are uplifting. Some challenge us to redefine themselves. You see, in high school, I was very active. Not particularly a great student, but a leader. I participated in everything. So I remember this one time, I was the only black student in my AP English class. And I sat there, and my teacher labeled me the darkness in the corner. Now, you say that, but I love this teacher. I mean, this was my favorite teacher. What she saw in me was, yes, I was the only black kid in the class, and she probably shouldn't have done that at that time, but she was like, I've got to get the potential out of this guy. And so every year she would assign this poem for everybody to recite. And she knew, she looked at me and she said, I know William can do this. Why? Because what the rest of the students didn't know, who doubted if I should even be there, they didn't know that this teacher had my 2 older brothers before me. And the oldest, who's sitting here today, he went through this process. And then the next one went through this process. So she knew that I was prepared because they came home and taught me this poem even before I got in her class. So even though she called me darkness in the corner, she said, William, stand up. And I stood up and I said, Juan y del Bril, but the shoulda sota, the root of Martyrs spears it to the rota, and father every vein and sweet liqueur within 2 engendered is the floor. When zephyrs ache with the sweat of breath. Does anybody know what that is? Somebody knew. I saw my brother down here probably mouthing the poem as well. It is the prelude to the Canterbury Tales by Geoffrey Chaucer in Old English. Well, why does an African-American young kid from the West Side still remember that? Because that was the point that I started to believe, that I knew that I had the opportunity to be successful. She planted in me to start up. She said, at this point, you will continue to move forward. And I knew at that point that now I had the confidence and the resilience and the capability to be successful. You see, at Do Greater Charlotte, we build creative confidence. We build creative confidence to help students turn their challenges into opportunities. Just as I transformed a harsh label into a moment of resilience, our programs empower students to face adversity with innovative thinking, redefining the narratives, and overcoming obstacles with confidence. See, that's the power of seeing beyond labels and using those moments to build social capital that will propel our students forward. You see, those are experiences that laid the groundwork for a question that will shape the next phase of my life. And for me, that was, what comes next? You see, after years in the tech industry, including a fulfilling career at Apple, I found myself asking this question, what's next? I realized that life needed to be more about things that were not this physical things, but should be more than just success. It needed to be about impact. So it was during this period, kind of for me, as from introspection standpoint, that I began to wonder in my life, or if my life was just this continuous scroll. It's like this content on your social media feed. It's continuing to move and move and move. And I wondered if my life would just continue to scroll, or if people would just continue to scroll past my life. This is William. He's just another cog on Instagram, But would my life be compelling enough to make you stop? Is it something in that scroll that I would do that would make you stop? It's almost like you go to Netflix and you can't find anything to watch, and you're sitting there and you're like, I can't find anything. Well, if your life was a documentary on Netflix, would you watch? Would people watch what you have done, or the impact that you had made? I didn't think it would happen. So I started to think, what makes me different? I want to become the content, not the commercial. You see, these questions led me to a profound realization that I needed to commit to something that was impactful. So I wrote this action statement, not just a statement, but an action statement. And I said, commit to doing something greater that will keep giving when you are no longer able to give. Now, I didn't know where this came from at the time. Something that just bubbled up inside of me. And as you can see, it has this do greater word inside of it. But I didn't know why I wrote this. And so what is it that you are here to do? What is your action statement? Why do you exist? What is your why? Are you going to commit to something greater, something that will outlast you? And then when I thought that I had it all under control now, I wrote this statement down. I knew exactly where I wanted to go. Life threw me the ultimate challenge. This is the moment when the mirror reflected not just uncertainty, but the very real possibility that this was the end. You see, in 2016, I was diagnosed with idiopathic pulmonary fibrosis. Out of nowhere, sitting there just like you are. And the next day, I was stricken. Lungs began to collapse. Things began to happen. Oxygen tanks carried 24/7, every single day. But the one thing that I didn't lose was belief. Doubt never came in my mind. It was this whole idea that when doubt has no beginning, faith has no ending. So the doubt never came. It was this idea that I had things to do. And as Tim mentioned, I would come to Creative Mornings every Friday pulling an oxygen tank. Because what it gave me was this sense of purpose. It gave me this opportunity for me to say, I can create community, be involved in the community, and now understand how to build a community. So in March 2019, after coming to Creative Mornings for a couple of years, the doctor said I had 2 weeks to live. 2 weeks. But in my mind, the glass was half full. It wasn't that I had 2 weeks to live. I had 2 weeks for a miracle to happen. And so 2 days after I was told I had 2 weeks, I underwent a double lung transplant, a procedure that saved my life, a procedure that normally takes months of waiting. 2 days, I was moving forward. But in those days of recovery, I spent a lot of time looking in the mirror, wondering what would come next. But as the days passed, the reflection began to change. I started to see beyond the scars, beyond the fear, and into the future that I hadn't dared to dream or imagine. That's when Do Greater Charlotte began to take shape. See, surviving wasn't enough. I needed to do something meaningful with my second chance. Why did I get a second chance? I had to commit to doing greater. Remember, I wrote that action statement before the challenges came, not during. You see, life's toughest challenges offer this opportunity to redefine yourself. Now, at this point, looking in the mirror wasn't a reflection of possibilities. It was now a reflection of purpose, a reflection of destiny. It turned. You see, it was the same shift of perspective that I had when I was in the 6th grade, when that band director told me that I could be successful. Now, I'm seeing things differently. I'm starting to see that there are things that I can do to impact the lives of others. It's not just about me. So it's when you stop looking at your circumstances and you start looking past them. So I remember when I was coming out of the transplant, I had to take physical therapy to get my balance back right. I was just all over the place. I couldn't do anything. My whole body had to readjust. And in physical therapy, they would tell you to put a balance beam on the floor, and they would tell you to walk the balance beam. Walk it so that I could practice my balance. I would fall off every single time. Boom. Tried to walk, fall off, boom. And the physical therapist said, William, what are you doing? And I said, I'm trying to walk. I'm putting one foot in front of the other. He said, no. What are you looking at? I said, I'm looking down at my feet. I have to see where I'm going. He said, no, don't look at where you're going or look down at the circumstances that you're in. Look up and see where you're going. And when I stopped looking down at my feet, trying to understand what was happening to me, what the circumstances were, vertically looking down at the time that I was actually in, I started looking up and seeing this vision of my preferred future. I started to see what Do Greater was all about. And I walked that balance beam perfectly by looking ahead. And so for me, it's this now focusing on what I think is this vision of the preferred future for Do Greater Charlotte. And see, when you start to focus on challenges, they become magnified. But when you focus on purpose, your challenges are diminished and you start to see greater things. So today, when I look in the mirror, I don't see myself. I see the reflections of thousands of youth and adults whose lives have been transformed to do greater. From the mobile creative lab that we started with that first $250 HUD grant, a truck that we took out in the community and started teaching kids about creative technologies. Understand that this was 2 months after the lung transplant. We're here, do greater, mask on and everything, and saying we want to impact. And move from there to an 8,000 square foot creative lab that we built from zero to impact the lives of kids on the west side of Charlotte. But when you start doing things like that, things start to happen. People start to join you. The vision becomes, you can see it, you can touch it, and people start to join that. We have this core value we call doubt the default. When people tell you can't do things, we doubt that. We say, no, we can. And so when we built the Creative Lab at Shiloh, and I'm walking around uptown Charlotte, and I see a 20,000 square foot building, and they say, you can't do that. And I say, watch. So now we are building a 20,000 square foot Creative Lab uptown. See if it comes up. But it'll come up. Oh, there we go. This is, yes, former Mayor Gant's architecture building. We are turning into a 20,000 square foot creative lab uptown to build a sense of belonging for underestimated entrepreneurs and opportunity youth, with a full digital studio in the basement as well. So if you look around, I have students that are here that are graduates of our Creative Digital Studio Academy. They're here somewhere, back in the back. These students have spent 18 weeks training to be digital creators. They're here today taking pictures and videos of what, the speech. But our opportunity for us is now to build these spaces of belonging, build these spaces where kids now can start their upward mobility, that trajectory. You see, each of these spaces is a mirror reflecting the potential of anyone who walks through those doors. Each space, each community, is a building block of social capital, or what we call economic connections, or what we've coined this whole idea around creative collisions. But see, they're not just for me, it's for everybody who has stepped in these environments. So as I close, I want to leave you with this. One final thought. I'm grateful to have been able to make an impact, to continue this work, and to be a part of this journey. But my story isn't just about reflection. It's about all of us. It's about the reflections of possibility that each one of you carries within you. Because when you look in the mirror, you're not just seeing who you are, you're seeing who you could become. I encourage you to doubt the default, to challenge the limitations that you see, and to strive for greater things. Not just for yourself, but for the impact that you can have on the world. You will be the start up for many students. So up for many students will start with that connection with you. It will happen from communities you build, spaces you create, and the social capital that you cultivate. And you will attract like-minded individuals. You will attract individuals who want to join your vision. For me, it was Kelsey and Jazzy and Karina and Sheila and Veronica and all the CDS students and all of our sponsors and partners who see now the vision. And I see some of them here, Gresham Smith and Lowe's, the team from Lowe's, and Jesse Weezer from Truist, and Charlotte is Creative, my board of directors, all these folks starting to see what we see. We've seen firsthand how creating these spaces can change lives. You see, our lives are not just physical spaces, what we call, they are ecosystems of possibility. When students walk through our doors, they're stepping into environments designed to elevate them, to challenge them, and to inspire them to see beyond their current circumstances. So when you look in the mirror, don't just see the present, see the endless possibilities of what could be. Then go out there and make those things happen. Not just for you, but for the communities that you're a part of. You see, passion moves you forward, but purpose fuels the impossible. Start now to see eyes of purpose and go do greater. Thank you.
Amazing. Amazing. I'm inspired.
William McNeely, everybody. William McNeely.
This is why we come.